Welcome to We Are Already Free, a podcast helping down-to-earth people to live their truth and be the change. If you're fed up with feeling disempowered by the things you can't control, if you're ready to spend your one precious life growing a beautiful world with the people you love, this is for you. Do you ever get overwhelmed and frozen into inaction by how much is going wrong these days? Everywhere you look, it's bad news. If so, me too. And I have some good news. We've got great medicine for that on this week's episode, where you'll hear from Shaun the Viking Zimmer. Shaun is a devoted father, viral meme king, life coach, health enthusiast, public speaker, entrepreneur, author, rescuer of masculinity, protector, provider, and man of God. Soon to be launching a new offering called I Believe in Us, and host of the brand new The Viking's Voice podcast. All show notes with links to Shaun can be found at alreadyfree.me/008. In this episode, we hear from Shaun on becoming the man he is today and the sometimes dark journey that it took to get here. We also hear how he became a man of God, and there's a deep resonance that he and I experience in our own perspectives on spirituality and religion and how that's shown up in our own lives. Towards the end, he shares a surprising bit of advice on how to get started with health and fitness. And if you know anything about Shaun, you'll know that this dude really knows how to take care of himself physically. So it's really interesting the direction that he takes when I ask him about that. I'm Nathan Maingard, and I nearly killed myself in my efforts to fit a mold our society just calls being a good citizen. Now I practice serving those who are ready to live their truth, using tools like gentle breathwork, empowering wordsmithery, and transformational one-to-one sessions. Stick around to the end of this episode where I share an exciting bit of news for you, for all who love this podcast as much as I do. Speaking of loving this podcast, so many thanks to anyone who is leaving reviews and subscribing and sharing the episodes. It makes a massive difference in my world. And so thank you to this lovely human who says, I love Nathan's positivity and vibe. You can tell that he genuinely cares about people. I do. He and his guests have powerful messages that go against the mainstream social construct with an open mind and open heart. Thank you so much, KJC Zap. So if you love the podcast, please do leave a review, follow, subscribe, share. It all makes a really, really big difference. And now, please enjoy this uninterrupted episode with Shaun the Viking Zimmer. When I was looking at your website, I saw something that I found really beautiful, and I wanted to ask you about it. You said, I'm proud to say I'm a righteous man, a selfless man, an honest man, a man of God, and a man of good. That most definitely was not always the case. So I'm really curious because there's two things there. One is like, what a beautiful way to own yourself, to really step into like, this is how I am, this is who I am in the world, and to really state that. And then also the acknowledgement that that wasn't always the case. And so the question I have for you is, what was going on, or how did you change to become the man you are today? And why weren't you always the man that you are today?
Well, the most simplest answer on that would be consciousness. Unconscious before, conscious now. To dive into it deeper, well, that would be all the past trauma, the things that have happened in life that didn't go the way I wanted as a child. Neglected maybe here or there, and ways of acting out, and surrounding yourself in the wrong environment, the wrong crowd, and escaping through drugs, alcohol, sex. At a younger age, adrenaline from stealing cars. That's a whole other story we could get into on what wound me up in another province in Canada here. Really no care for anyone else, just hiding from the truth, hiding from my feelings, doing whatever I could to just gain some instant gratification. And that was a very selfless process, selfless way of living. And as I dove into mentors, self-help books, this started, entertaining this burning desire inside to become better and to be more, knowing that I am more. brought me to a state of consciousness that is, reversed all of that. And I appreciate the past and what it allows me to resonate with in others and share my experiences and help direct people away from such a path, learning the easy way instead of the hard way as I did. And, the spiritual world most definitely has been a huge, huge side of that for me, coming into God and my beliefs as such, and changing really my complete outlook on the world and understanding just how much more there is to it and how much more I have to give instead of take.
How did you, because I've heard you say that before around being a man of God. And so for me, I'll just give a brief little insight in that I have always felt uncomfortable with religion. I from a very, very young age, it just seemed like everyone was trying to convince me that I needed to join their club, and that if I didn't join their club, I was going to the bad place. But everyone had a different set of rules as to what would get me to the good place. And I noticed that they all seemed to have very similar. There were aspects in each religion that resonated with me, that felt true, but then they limited it by saying, well, if you don't join our club. And I noticed that when I really committed to music and to my storytelling and my songwriting, that suddenly all these people started coming up to me and saying, oh, you must be Christian, or you must be Buddhist, or you must be Muslim because you're saying this thing from this verse and that thing from that verse. And I was like, yes, I get it. It's all has elements of the truth in it. And it took me a long time to be comfortable with saying, yes, I am a man of God, as you so beautifully put it. I am a man of God, and I have a deep relationship to Spirit, and I really do my best to allow Spirit to guide me. And so that's kind of my story, which is why I'm curious around, like, how did you come to that place from what sounds like the distraction, the desire to just numb it all and escape it all, and what brought you now to being a man of God?
Yeah, well, greatly expressed on your front. I resonate with that. Very similar story. Always deep down, I knew there was something greater, but never gave it the time of day, even the slightest thought beyond that, because of religion, because of the divide, the fear, people saying, got to be part of this club. It has to be this way, or you're damned forever and you're going to hell. And that just never resonated, didn't sit well with me. My intuition just said, no, that's incorrect. And I didn't dive actually in deeper trying to learn for myself until, I think it was just over 2 years ago now. I've been a huge self-development junkie for the last decade, and continuously focusing on better health physically and mentally. I used to train people with personal training, group fitness, online training, which transitioned into lifestyle coaching. And always in my logos, I had mind, body, spirit. And honestly, the spirit part I never understood why that was there. It just came from one of the courses I took to certify as a trainer. And finally that came full circle. In the process of me, as I really started giving myself more, I started making this transition just naturally to want to help people more, even if that didn't help me in terms of a monetary value as it used to be when I'd run business. I started letting go of that and just really wanting to help. If I can help you, I want to help you. I don't care if I'm getting anything from it. I want to help you. And really soon I realized I was getting more than ever on what that was fulfilling inside of me. And that is what brought me that transition from, just personal training to lifestyle coaching, helping people when they were in a tough spot, just understanding I had so many different, beautiful mentors to pull from, pieces of advice, stories that could relate with people that would help them get out of that rut and really take ownership of their life. And in that process, I was building my persona online and in the community, and I was enjoying that. And this is when I had started to dive down the world of psychedelics. And at first I was utilizing psychedelics, specifically magic mushrooms, to ground myself. I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time, but bring my ego down and just really let go and be. I loved how it just made me just forget about everything and just be in the moment, enjoy the blades of grass in front of me, the trees around. And a few experiences into that is when God came to me and spoke to me, at the time through music. I used to call myself music illiterate. I could never hear lyrics. Could never hear them. I loved music, but I couldn't hear it. People would laugh at me when they'd hear me listening to a song that was my favorite. You know what they're talking about? And it didn't resonate with who I was. And then all of a sudden, boom, I could just hear music and my hair stood up and it was speaking directly to me. And I almost quickly thought I was going crazy until I was left with a series of names to contact. And that I know was given to me not just for the help, but proof, because I contacted these few people and saved their lives that night. And they had a dream about me and it all connected. I could dive quite deeper into that. So that gave me that little bit of, no, it's not just the psychedelic, Shaun. There was something there. And I started consuming then psychedelics once a month to connect spiritually. And I didn't have a profound experience as such again until about 6 months down the road, where I had what felt like the spirit of Jesus Christ come to me. And it felt as such because what happened is I felt a massive sacrifice from this being, this spirit that was around me, and showing my ego for what it was. As 6 months prior, I had this huge awakening that God is real and I'm on the right path. He said, I've given you your path, your voice that stands outside the crowd, your rough look around the edges and attitude, because you have a message that's going to resonate with this group of people over here. That's the same as these over here, but just in a different delivery. So keep going, my son. And I did, but not to the fullest extent. And that's because my ego got in the way. Originally online, I had memes that went viral. My daughter and I, that's what really started my presence online and getting into helping people. And in these memes going viral, I noticed just how judgmental people were and hateful on the littlest things. Picking apart, I put a white vignette around my picture and they were picking apart my ashy feet, wondering what's going on, if I have a disease or this and that. Really, it's just a filter that was, encroaching on all these different things, right? And that actually impacted me quite a bit. I didn't want to admit it. And I just started speaking on this, really, how it really made me insecure. And so in this process, when I was first shown, yes, share your message, share your voice, trying to get there, I was still worried about having to take the perfect picture, perfect video, make sure everything was perfect, worrying about my physical form so people couldn't pick me apart that much, falling short of the delivery on really what mattered. Right, so stuck on physical form. So when I had this happen to me, the second spiritual experience, I felt the sacrifice and felt just terrible for not giving myself. And I felt, again, like what I felt was Jesus Christ. And as I share that story, and even just sometimes I'll visit a Christian church, I feel called to go do so, and people automatically think I'm Christian. And I wouldn't say I am. I'm sure one day if I study the Bible enough, I could probably find all my beliefs in there, just the way I would decipher the scripture compared to most, right? Intuitively, I've always felt that reincarnation is a real thing and many other things, which has allowed me to let go so much and see this life as such a minimal, really blip on the map. So that is really in a nutshell how it first began. And I've transitioned to fully diving in and renouncing many things in my devotion and hitting a point now where I have that connection in many ways, not just through music, and don't need psychedelics anymore as well, diving in through meditation just on a daily basis. And that really came in tune from raising my vibration, which was the preceding factor before that, focusing on my health, being more selfless, raising that vibration up, coming out of my heart space and opening up and aligning with myself. So that was, it's been a beautiful, beautiful transformation. And that's, one of my favorite things is when I meditate morning and evening, diving into it and just getting into that space and disconnecting with the form, the physical form, and, the ego, the pain body, and realizing who the true self inside is.
Well, you're certainly bringing me a lot of hope in this moment, because I've been on this path for years now and still really struggle with some of the things I hear you are really confronting wholeheartedly, like meditation. Meditation is such a painful one for me still. So it's really beautiful to hear. The reminder is like, just show up one more time, then I fall down. Like that's kind of that's what I'm getting.
You know what? On meditation, Nathan, I really resonate with that because it's something I had such difficulty with. Meditation was one of the things that I was telling my clients to do at least 10 minutes a day that I was struggling to do. And I don't like, telling you to do something I'm not doing. And I would struggle just trying to do 10 minutes a day, And then I came across a yogi speaking on it, on how he said, don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be this way or that way. Take it as it comes. Your mind's busy, your mind's busy. Your mind's blank, great, your mind's blank. focus on your breath if you want, just go into it, get into that space. And that is really what opened my eyes to and started enjoying it more. And then when I had one experience, again, on psychedelics, where I was just, the whole journey was just, boom, I just disconnected from my body, completely weightless. I had a lot of pain in my body, and it was just showing me, you can do this through meditation without this drug, without this plant medicine. And so I started diving into it a lot deeper, and then understanding also yoga, more on the reality of what yoga is, not the Western view of it, just as these movements, right? The movements, a hatha yoga is actually so you can sit in meditation. So I have recently stopped focusing on my, physical appearance and wanting to have more muscle and focusing on more on flexibility and function. And now I can actually sit with cross-legged, almost half lotus pose, these different things that have been slowly progressing. And it's been a beautiful thing. But again, when I first made that kind of breakthrough, it was like, hey, if you got to lie down and do it, lie down and do it. Because I had terrible back pain. I was also focused, well, I'm supposed to be sitting like this, right upright. Sure, yeah, you want to get to that point. But if that's going to be a barrier for you even getting close to crossing over, well, then, step back and just start with small steps.
I love that. Start with small steps. Like, I think that is just one of the beautiful messages that's missing in our society so much today. It's all about like getting to the top of the mountain instead of like, well, how many steps did you take? And what was the quality of each steps that you took that got you there? And that's just such a critical piece. So I'm loving everything you're saying. I really like, there's so many directions I could head off in now. I need to choose one. But I think there's a piece in there around, okay, so there's the practical side. I'm very interested to hear the story around actually having this experience that you had, the first big awakening where there was like this connection with these people and saving lives. Like, I want to get to that. I think first I would just like to hear practically around the plant medicines and psychedelics, because I think for many people listening who are either somewhat experienced or curious, etc., there's obviously a big step around, how do I do this responsibly? How do I do it safely? And so when you were working with these medicines, for you, what was the way that you would setting basically? How did you build your structure that enabled you to have these journeys and have these experiences in a way that was beneficial rather than harmful?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the plant medicines, when I was younger, it was never plant medicine, it was a drug. See the walls moving and enjoy it and whatnot. And I won't lie, in the last 2 years, I have caught myself utilizing it as a drug to enjoy the lasers and the shiny lights in my home and whatnot. But I've made that transition to, cut that out completely and really dive in just for the spiritual connection. So backing up to, your question, the first setting for me when I started utilizing them, as I said, to just ground myself and bring my ego down, I was going for either a run or a bike ride in the park. Now, I wouldn't suggest going on your bike. That was, there's some times that I shouldn't have been on my bicycle. But that's where it started. And I actually was listening to this. I got into the habit, my setting was go to the park, and listen to one of my favorite audiobooks, The 7 Laws of Spiritual Success by Deepak Chopra. It's an hour and 11 minutes if you put it on 1.2 speed. He speaks a little slow for my liking. And that was my go-to. And it was a good, just really fulfilling journey for me. And then I went to do that this one time. And within 5 minutes, I took my tea, and I jumped on my bicycle, was off to head to the park. That's just 15 minutes away from my home. And 5 minutes in, this is before the medicine had kicked in, I felt the most strongest intuitive draw inside of me to turn around and go back home. I was like, what? No, I'm excited to go to the park. It's a beautiful day. I just had this tea. I'm going to go enjoy frolicking around in the park. And then it was like, no, go home. Go home. And then all of a sudden a voice spoke in my head that was not mine. I said, turn around and go home. And I was like, whoa. I was halfway to the park. I turned around. I couldn't fight it anymore. Turned around, went home. And just such a negative feeling started coming over me. I was sitting on my couch, and it's what most would call a bad trip, which I say is often what you want. You need to turn into that. It's got everything you're looking for. Don't fight it. And I tried to fight it. But then I said, oh, what can I do? I had this playlist I made on my phone called Soul Music. Never listened to it. Again, I was telling you about music. I was trying to learn music, but I just still couldn't connect. I had beautiful songs, but it never like resonated what the message actually was. So I had this playlist called Soul Music, and it was an hour long. I hit play on that and went and jumped in my bed and put my sheets over my head. And I was just like, let's just ride this out. And that's when it happened. That playlist, and I know because actually I had my GPS on for when I was going for the bike ride, because I always like to track everywhere I go. And it tracked for almost 3 hours. The music played for 3 hours, and my phone doesn't actually, when a playlist plays, it stops. And these songs all spoke to me, and I was able to ask questions, and the songs answered, and it was clear. And again, for a while, I didn't want to tell anybody this. I'm like, you sound fucking crazy, dude. Like, man, you're going to make people think God doesn't exist for sure, if that's where it's all coming from the psychedelic world. So that's really where that has started. That was the setting. And now that I have transitioned to utilizing it, well, actually, my most recent journey was a clear indicator. You don't need this. You have the answers that you're seeking right now. Maybe in the future you do. But yeah, it was a complete, and I already knew that. I was aware of it. So it's quite interesting to see that just impactful message. But my favorite setting for utilizing them in such a manner was a 5 gram dose of penis envy, which is the strongest strain that I'm aware of, and taking that as a tea. And I would start with a meditation, really setting intentions on that, praying with it in my hand on what I'm looking for, what I'm seeking to release, the guidance I'm looking to receive. And then I would go into my room in the dark, shut off all the lights, and just see where it takes me. And so no distractions, because it's awesome looking at, I have all these lasers and stuff around the house for all the parties we throw and whatnot. And it's awesome sitting there with a bunch of shrooms and looking at those lasers. It's like just mind blowing, but it's distracting from what you could actually be receiving. So that's my preferred setting. And a lot of people, it would be best they did it with a guide. The one thing I do think with a guide, pros and cons with that, because I think on my experience, if I had a guide with me, if I had a person with me, I don't know if I ever would have broke through. They would have maybe interrupted because I was having such a hard time, right? So I don't know if I would have received that as I did, because I was just so alone and so susceptible to what needed to come to me and save me at the time. And that's where my second experience, as I said, that experience in the washroom, I got down on my knees crying when I felt that sacrifice, knowing that I wasn't giving what I should have. And as profound as my experience was 6 months prior, dropped down on my knees crying. And then I got up, leaned against the bathroom wall, and I had just taken a shower. And instantly my mind's like, hey, get off the wall. It's a brown wall. You're going to get this big watermark on it. And sure enough, I did. And the watermark, and this to me was just set everything in stone again, was the perfect shape of these giant lips. Now, to back up, for the last 2 months, I have artwork all over here around me, and it's all motivational artwork by Iconic. And Iconic also has this artwork of these lips in different things like gold dripping, money, flowers. My daughter and I have been wanting to purchase one of these paintings of the lips and put it in this very spot in the bathroom. So that was the message to me, yes. And it's actually my birthday, actually, as of an hour into this journey now. It was in the middle of the night. I was like, yes, go and purchase that. Put it here to remember. And I go on Iconic, and of course they just made one that was with butterflies, the butterfly effect, metamorphosis. So I purchased that and put it in there. That was a staple on that. So that's in a nutshell my journey. And I've experienced many other things since then. So
well, let's get into the just because like what you're talking about, these so-called synchronicities of things lining up. I actually remember, again, just a brief intro to the next story I'm interested in hearing. But when my beloved Carly and I were first together, we decided to do a journey together. It must have been maybe 2 or 3 grams each. Like it wasn't a sort of heroic dose, but still enough that things got intense. And especially with someone we'd known each other maybe a year at that point, so things were still quite new. And I still credit that experience with how deep and how long our relationship has lasted at this point. But one of the things that happened that night was that at one point we were lying next to each other, kind of just like cuddling, just spooning, and it was intense. Especially then, I was much less experienced with plant medicines and those kind of transformative spaces. And so there was like a lot of intensity. And in me, I'm the communicator. That's one of my gifts in life, is to be the one who brings the message and shares the message of life with my people. And so with Carly, she was lying there and we'd be quiet, and then I'd have this feeling of energy getting stuck, and it would start to feel dark and scary and intense, and the balance of energy would be out of alignment. And as I felt it, there was this urge to speak to it, to say, I witnessed this. I see what's happening. And I would speak it. And as I would speak it, exactly the thing that Kylie was struggling with in that moment would be the thing that I was speaking, and it would then release the energy, and we could like find our equilibrium again. So and there are just so many of those kind of stories, which is just amazing. So I would love to hear this one of how, as you had that awakening, where there were things that proved to you, that helped you to really know when you came out the other side that this is real. This is not just me thinking I'm off on some journey with some psychedelic drugs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a few friends who do guided journeys, and that they always speak on that, what you just mentioned, the connection to the energy, the shift, and feeling that what the person's going through in that trauma. It's funny, every time I do mushrooms, my back pain, I feel completely different. It's as a trapped energy. It's like I'm holding it there for a reason, something I still haven't unlocked the keys to and understanding. So yeah, as I said, the profound, confirmation that one night with the painting, and that is with the lip mark and being exactly the painting we were looking at. And that's what brought me to reach out to a friend of mine who's a pastor in Christianity and start doing a Bible study, because I was like, well, I felt sacrifice. What's sacrifice? Well, Jesus Christ, right? And I started diving into it. Always intuitively, though, I felt reincarnation to be a real thing, and these different things that really fell outside the box of what most in that religion perceive. So back to one thing you said there, I resonate with people kind of coming at me. Sometimes they see me going to church, and then I talk about this or that, and they get very mad that I'm saying anything outside the box. And what I loved when my pastor came over, he said, "Hey, Shaun, you're saying things I don't agree with, but I'm not going to tell you that. I just want you to know that is something I don't agree with. I'm going to tell you right now, but I'll never say anything, because that's between you and God. That's your progressive revelation." I wish that was the approach that I had as a child, because I never would have steered away, right? It was just all encompassing. So the first time when I was left with names, one specific name was an individual that I used to be very good friends with when I moved to Winnipeg here. And I hadn't talked to him for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. I can't remember how long it's been. Never think about him, nothing. It just came to me. So I reached out to him that evening. And the next morning, he messaged me back, and he's like, "Holy shit, man! Like, you came to my mind just a day ago to reach out, and but I'm in such a low place. I've hit like rock bottom with my drinking and drug use. I'm out of the house. I was in pretty well like a crack house last night. Just about ready to actually give up on my life." And so I told him what happened. I was like, "God came to me last night," and that's new for me to say. I sound crazy saying this, but we need to connect, man. I'm going to help you. And so he turned his life around, got sober, and it's steering towards, developing an addiction counseling program actually as well. So that was a huge one. And then a few other individuals that I reached out to that really just completely changed their life that night. And they're like, "Wow, that message you sent me, I was given a message to send and a way to deliver it. And it made just a lasting imprint." And these are people that I didn't even really know online, but I was given their name. So it was quite interesting. So that those first two experiences were very profound for me to look back on and never be able to really shake my head and say, no, that was all in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, those are critical because the mind and the ego is so good at being like, it was just, synchron, like it could have just happened to anyone. It's just whatever. But there's some stories where it's like, I know what that felt like. I know how crazy the odds of that happening are. Like this, you can't overcome that. So I'd love to hear, you mentioned something around moving from anger to love, because obviously the context here, and part of the reason for this conversation, the reason I know about you, is because you have been a voice for sovereignty and a voice for liberty and human rights. I mean, it's the foundational stuff of like what it means to be human. And you've really chosen some very strong stands around, no, I wouldn't say ignoring, but consciously choosing an alternate path to the one that your government has set for you. For example, you're in Canada and all these lockdowns and shutdowns. You can't do this, but everyone's doing that instead. And it's just like things that didn't make sense to you. And so I'm really curious how that aligned, not just in the actions you took, but in the way you felt about it, because it sounds like initially there was the sense of that you were judging, that you were angry, and you wanted to like, I'm going to take you down kind of thing. And then something shifted. And now when you speak about it, there's a sense of love and understanding. And I actually saw a brief video of you at the trucker convoy where you were in the town, and you were even saying to the army guys on the other side with their big armor and their helmets and their shields, and you were like, listen, I have only love for you. Like, I'm not judging you. I see you. I know that this isn't right, and I'm calling you out on that. And I'd love to hear you speak to that journey from rage and anger and judgment to love and understanding with still having clear boundaries. And that's a very powerful distinction. It's not just, love and light and everything's cool, but it's like, hey, I love you enough to be strong in this.
Absolutely. And that's something I should try to emphasize a little bit more when I talk on it. Still setting those clear boundaries, still standing to protect what is right. And definitely that was a transition I made, when the lockdowns came, when the news first spread about what was happening, and instantly my intuition said, no, that's not right. And people aren't going to listen to this. And now this was at a time where I was making the transition away. I was doing most of my life coaching online, and I was making the transition away from one-on-one coaching into virtual programs. I developed a virtual program 2 years prior, and I was taking notes for 2 years, taking feedback, and about to revamp it into something I really wanted to gift to the world. A very well-rounded way to just change your life and take ownership. And so this was at the time where I had just emptied my bank account to purchase all the professional gear to execute on that the best that I could. And I was writing a book as well. So I was really just bought all this gear. It's time to figure out how to do it, how to use the damn camera, how to use the computer, the video editing software, the green screen, all this stuff to develop this virtual interactive program. And when that happened, I was like, okay, well, people aren't going to listen to this. Get back to work, Shaun. Just keep going. And then I think 6 months, 9 months later, I realized people were listening. And then they said you couldn't have more than one person over at your home or even in your yard. And I just like, enough's enough. Like, this is ridiculous. Originally, a couple months into realizing people were listening, I had wished I had a storefront that I could be that shining light in the city to like show you, hey, you can say no. Whatever. They want to ticket you up, try to close your door. Follow Ian Smith, my man in the States, who took his damn door off his gym. He led the way for us, right? That was an inspiration for where I went. And so that's when I jumped online and I made this deal. And this is another thing that we could talk about, and instilling that confidence on the reality of God. Because I made a deal. I said, okay, I'm going to put all my stuff aside. Right? I just emptied my accounts. I mean, emptied. I run things real close sometimes. Like, I didn't have a safety net, nothing. I'm going to put everything off to the side, and I'm going to do what I know I need to do to help people in the community, and then use that as a shining light for the reach I have online. So I have this yard. My home is on just off of one of the busiest streets in Winnipeg. There's actually just a parking lot separating us with this bar. So, and actually, ironically, the parking lot is about 6 feet higher in grade. So it's perfect for people to actually come and see exactly what I'm doing in my yard. Big bubble on one of the busiest streets. I used to teach boot camps. So gyms were closed. All these things were closed, right? People weren't allowed to interact with each other. I said, all right, jumped on my social media and said, come on down here for free boot camp classes every week. No matter what, I'm here. If it's just me or if there's 100 of you, don't care who try to tell me I can't. This is a place of safety. Come on down. And that is what started the movement in this community that, evolved into doing kids classes, weekly yoga class, weekly martial arts class, bi-weekly fires, comedy nights, karaoke nights, axe throwing events, like all these different things that bring people together and give them a place of safety and a place to inspire them to stand in their truth. And, I can back up and talk about that deal I made, because I said, hey, I'm going to put everything off to the side, just make sure my bills are covered. And it got really sketchy. And then all of a sudden, just a random person would come around and be like, here's a large donation. I know you need this. And actually, it happened one time where I got down on my knees. I was like, hey, I made up. Like, I kept to my end of the bargain. And here I am, almost 3 mortgage payments behind as of tomorrow. And they're going to put my home in for foreclosure. I need 10 grand tomorrow. Thank you. And I said so with confidence. You know, when I pray, I don't request ever. The odd time I'll stay like, hey, just in case you didn't notice, this is what's needed. Thank you for bringing it, right? And that's what I did this time. And the next morning, I forgot I had a call with this individual in Miami who runs a foundation out there, the Phenom Foundation. I'll give him a shout out, Eric, my man. I just absolutely love what he's brought to the table and now become a mentor of mine and a close friend. Had a call with him, and actually I've been putting it off for a while. I get a lot of requests online and, you know, a lot of weirdos and stuff. So I don't give people the time of day as often as I should. So we finally had this call and jump on, and he's talking to me about, you know, I see what you're doing. I want to help you fundraise so you can start this school that I see you want to do for kids and whatnot. And at the end of the call, he tells me, you know, I'm sure you're in a really, really kind of rough spot. I have a feeling that you probably need some money. And I was like, yeah, that's rough. Yeah, for sure. But you know, I'll figure it out. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to send you a little bit of money to help you stay afloat, and we'll get on a call next week, do this interview that I want to share out to my sponsors. So I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, right? Rubbing it off. Right after the call, 2 minutes later, all right, I sent you a transfer on PayPal. Sends me 10 grand. Gift. Exactly what I asked for. That happened 2 more times when I absolutely needed it. And actually, I've been tested on my faith on that going into things when people are like, well, Shaun, why don't you just really focus on your business or do this? You have so much you can monetize off of this community you built. I'm like, that's not the deal I made. That's not why I'm here. There may be a shift for that eventually. Sometime I do see that approaching. But right now, I'm still to stay true on this deal I made. And so that's, you know, just a blip in the story on really instilling that belief as well in the power of that connection that I made. And so my stance, you know, the word got out quickly on the community. As I said, it evolved to all these different events. The word got out to the police quickly as well. They were there quite often trying to scare me into shutting down, handing me tickets over the fence, and I showed everybody. Big F you. And I did so with anger, as you mentioned. I was very angry at people enabling, getting behind things because they didn't want to have an unpopular opinion. Maybe they didn't want to just get a little bit of backlash from their friends, family, or workplace, or just wanted to be a part of the club, or, you know, for whatever reason that they did. There were so many, and I was very upset about it because I looked at them as the problem and that they were enabling all of this to happen. That transition I made as I've dived deeper into my spirituality, I see this all as a great awakening and kind of part of a play. I think that is a story theme that is here for a reason. We have free will as people, but I do feel like there is a theme in the world that still plays out, and that is what has allowed me to release and understand, no, we can't have this beautiful awakening that is such on fast forward right now if we didn't have those other people and all the ridiculousness that is grabbing people and shaking them to ask questions, right? It's like, ask questions, my son. Look at what's happening. Wake up. So I've evolved to letting go and respecting everybody's journey. And that's when, you know, I had one journey I call my I am journey. When I was shown we're all one. There's no difference. Like, God is everything, in everything. We're all one. We're all paid to the same consciousness. Just it's our pain bodies and egos that get developed from society around us that trigger this being that's really not us, that reacts to other things around us. And I understood that I fell in a divide that was purposely put there. And I wasn't helping anything. Sure, I helped people have a safe place, but I could have done that out of love. Sure, it was nice for a lot of people at that time to see a man speaking up with aggressive, assertive direction on what was going on and inspiring people to do so. But the benefit that had to them caused more divide on the other side where they weren't hearing any message I had to share. So I could approach it a much better way. Remember when I came across Aubrey Marcus, his podcast somewhere in time, I'm like, that guy's like me, but like evolved 20 years from now, like really coming out of a better place that's connecting people. And that's the aim I've been making, to just connect and not divide, but unite. And that definitely takes a lot of putting your ego aside and different things. But it's, so it's been a huge evolution. Ottawa was one thing that really instilled that. That changed me completely, going to Ottawa, the trucker convoy. I was there for just about the entire time, minus the first 2 days, so like 6 weeks in total. And that completely changed me, just seeing people coming together the way they did and just all the love. I think everybody that went there that really embraced it changed them. It was just something beyond belief, really, seeing everybody come together the way they did, you know, pulling garbage out of everywhere, shoveling streets, you know, bringing food in, smuggling gas, whatever you had to do. People just did their part and did it and made it happen. We all stood there in sovereignty together. And it was a beautiful thing that really just made me love people so much more. And that was the message of last year, love thy neighbor as yourself. I kept getting it. Like, it was already here. Like, here, Shaun, this is what you need to be doing. Love thy neighbor as yourself. I'm like, I hear you, but fuck, it's hard. I want to hit these people, which ended up happening. Actually, I did get an incident that we might dive into that I've talked to on my second podcast here. That I just put out, The Viking's Voice. So it was a message that I finally absorbed. Love thy neighbor as yourself, understanding it. And that was that I am journey that really helped me. If I say F you to you, that's like saying F you to me. We're all one in this, right? And I know it's a hard concept for a lot of people to realize, but I feel that polarity in this world, the duality, is there for a reason to help us come back to who we truly are. And really, if people are like, wow, what about all those people suffering and this and that? Like, that's so terrible to say that, I put out a post the other day, like, what you're receiving right now is what's best for the evolution of your consciousness. And people speak on, what about those in concentration camps and whatnot? Well, I can't cite the names of who they were, but I know there were people that had the same outlook as that and same understanding. And the way I look at it is, like, if you hopped on, I have a Wii here. The only video game that I'll allow my daughter to play sometimes, we jump on there and play Mortal Kombat. We're there killing each other, right? It's just a video game. It's just one little blip. And that's kind of how I look at this life. It's just really, how real is it in retrospect on the grand scheme of things? So those are part of the things that have helped me in that evolution to just really release and respect others' journeys and just focus on becoming my best self, my highest self, and shining that light, being a lighthouse with the world.
Wow. I'm just resonating with so much you're saying right now. It's a thought that came up as you were speaking is, well, there's a few parts to it, but it's an old saying that's, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And by the same token, someone else said, and I will look up these quotes if I can find them and put them into the show notes just so people can go and like track down the readings a bit more. But another one that says, it might even be, anyway, I don't know who says it, but is basically that someone who says they're a pacifist but is not dangerous, is harmless, is not a pacifist. They're just harmless. Like, I could say I'm a pacifist, but what does it matter if I couldn't do anything anyway? A real pacifist is someone who's deadly, someone who's incredibly dangerous and who is choosing peace. And really, I'm wanting to reflect that for you right now, because when I see you and I see how strong you are, and I hear these stories of how at times you have been an angry man and have even hurt people at times, that your choice to be someone who is in love, which some could say is a pacifist in some ways, is to remember that we are all one, and that by you living your truth, you're not trying to deny someone else theirs. You're just living your truth, and that there is a big difference there. And so really just honoring that, what it means to be a true a peaceful warrior or a man of peace or a pacifist. So thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of my most recent lessons, an ongoing court case I have for when I did lose my temper on an individual. Really understanding true strength and power is in the restraint. Sheathing your sword, having the sword and knowing how to use it, but sheathing it and keeping that guard on until there is a time that's absolutely necessary. And I'm still undecided if that time would ever be of reality. And even the scripture, on the meek shall inherit the earth. The word meek is something that I think is one of the most misunderstood words out there. So it is, that restraint, that's where power is, true strength, not allowing your pain body to react and everything get involved in the reaction from what's around you.
Well, so I've come at this from kind of the opposite direction in a way, where I've been, or maybe not the opposite direction, but I've focused a lot on the sort of spirit and the we are all oneness, and at the expense in many ways of my actual physical health. So I've had sort of like chronic pain issues and all kinds of stuff for many years. And instead of taking that as an invitation to take better care of my body, I kind of went deeper into like, I must need to heal something emotionally, mentally, and through what I called depression, what people call depression, which I now think is, as Jim Carrey says, depression is your avatar letting you know it's tired of the character you're playing.
That's a good way to put it. I gotta write that one down. Yeah.
Dude, Jim Carrey, that guy's a boss. Anyway, so what I've been recently realizing is that actually, if I take care of my vessel, like my health and my fitness, basically on a very practical term, that is that enables me to do a number of things. One, it enables me to become a dangerous man, to become a strong, dangerous man who can then be a real pacifist instead of just like a harmless man who's like, yeah, I choose peace because I can't choose anything else. And also that it enables me to live in a body that is so strong and vibrant and energized that I can really be of service, that the voice, the messages, the stories, the podcast, the love, all the things I'm here to bring, I have the capacity to do that. And the reason I'm bringing that up now is because you have focused on that part in your life really strongly, being a strong, physically fit, healthy man. And I'm curious, just again, for our listeners and for me and for anyone who comes across this, like, how do you recommend people maybe who haven't focused on that area as much as they'd like to, or are realizing, wow, that's a good resilience tool for me, is to get strong in my body. What are some of the tips or the ways that you'd recommend people get started or improve in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's crucial. One of the biggest tips, and it's something I've recently moved away, and, ego has been something I've been a topic of study of mine for quite some time. And I'm really just starting to learn so much more about it that I thought I understood and had at bay. I was really taken back, actually, and that was God's kind of humorous way a few times of showing me that I didn't. Quite humorous, actually, a few of them I laugh on now. So one of the things is really, truly don't worry about how you look in the mirror. Careful with that. Be careful. Obviously, you want to be presentable and in good health, but be very careful of the trap of looking in the mirror, and especially with everything you see on social media. You can really get stuck in your ego very quickly with that and get addicted to the changes you see, which, could be a good, useful fuel for the fire, but it's a very fine line to dance on. So be careful with that. Focus on functionality, true overall health. And some of the most simple tips that I would give people, some of the biggest ones is sleep. Actually prioritize good quality sleep. That's something that we really take for granted, or not necessarily take for granted, but just put to the wayside in this fast world we're living. Slow down, be in the present moment, focus on sleep, minimize your stress everywhere you can. And one of the best ways I've done that is realizing the bigger picture and letting go, understanding that worrying robs you of your peace today. So those are some I know not directed to what many would think the first answers would be. But minimize stress, get good quality sleep, get out in the sun, wake up and go to bed with the sun, get out if you can, even in the middle of winter, take your shirt off and let those rays hit you. That is your life source. Soak up that sun for at least 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, at least, preferably much, much longer than that. Hydration. If you're drinking the tap water, I don't know where you are, but it's probably not a good idea here in Winnipeg. And I didn't even wake up to this until not too long ago. It's got tons of fluoride, chlorine, all these different things in there. Find good quality drinking water and get that in you, and eat real whole foods, right? Eat whole foods, real food. Some of the biggest things I suggest, even just the easiest way to start, take soy and canola off your diet and watch how much you're actually not eating anymore, because that stuff is in everything, and look into it on the damaging effects. Eat real whole foods, a balanced diet, and breath work. That's huge. These different things, meditation. So these are really things that you can do that will ground you and bring you in a place of peace. And we haven't even talked about physical performance, physical exercise yet, right? And obviously that's going to be a key component. Working out your body, whether it just be a fast walk to start, running if you can, weights. Resistance training is huge. Definitely, I suggest picking up some weights for sure. It's going to really help your body and help your metabolism as well. And one of the biggest things, a lot of people, one of the key points I can say beyond that without making it too confusing, too much information, is make sure you're eating enough. A lot of people are in a position of wanting to lose weight and they don't eat enough, and they put their body actually in starvation mode, where their body is now storing onto their fat, holding it on for dear life, and burning down their muscle for energy to survive. And that's actually going to bring your metabolism lower, and you're going to have the opposite result of what you're seeking. So those are some simple things. And working out, you don't have to get crazy with it, like complicated. Everybody's like, oh, well, just work out, move your ass, pick up some things, pick up some heavy things, even just some water jugs, move them around, do this, that, some squats. Like, honestly, just get moving. The workouts, you can make those more technical down the road. You just got to keep it simple, but your food, your sleep, your stress, your sunlight, your breathing, your water, hydration, focus on those simple things to start. And then as you gain some traction, you're going to find yourself more interested and more able to absorb information as you research on better diet, on better exercise, because you build this confidence and more awareness and interest in the subject.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I've been experiencing. So it hasn't even been that long. And it's kind of, I've on and off, I've been with trying out different exercise things and nothing's really stuck. And then literally in the last 6 weeks, it's really been that recent that I have recommitted, because I was a surfer when I was young. I was really into surfing. That was my church. Like that was my present moment awareness. There is no way that I can be on a wave and anywhere else but here now. Like this, it doesn't work. And then I had some injuries along the way, and I got into drugs and drink and women and and I prioritized other things. Similar story. Like I was escaping the pain that I had inside me. And I was trying to fit into a society that had told me very clearly when I was a kid that I was not okay by the society standards. I was like, I just want to be honest and connect and have fun. And it was like, no, we're going to bully you and we're going to give you detention and we're going to crush that beautiful spirit as much as we can till you conform. And I tried to conform. I tried hard. Anyway, so through it all, the chronic pain, all the things started to happen over the years. And then surfing really kind of stopped being an option because of neck spasms, etc. Long story short, 6 weeks ago, I finally really committed to kettlebells, which is something I've worked on and off with over the last few years, really always enjoyed it, but never stayed consistent enough. And in the last 6 weeks, I mean, it has given me just so much on so many levels and I don't really look that different. It's been 6 weeks, but I'm not, I enjoy looking in the mirror just because I actually think I look lovely. I was telling my partner, I think I have dysmorphia in a positive way. I always look in the mirror, I'm like, my body's lovely. But the difference that I'm noticing is the feeling of energy and strength. I started on 12 kilograms. Do you guys work in kilos there? Is that
pounds, but I know the difference. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I used to sell a lot of drugs once upon a time.
There you go. Yeah. So I started on 12 kilos and it was hard. And then I moved up to 16 after a few weeks and I was like, wow, this is really hard. And now there are exercises that when I did them, there's a 10-minute workout that when I first tried it with 16 kilos, I thought I was going to throw up. I was literally collapsed on the ground, almost in tears. And now I can do it. And I can do it. And at the end of it, I'm like, I want to do something else. Let's keep swinging these kettlebells. And so, I don't know, just for me starting, because I've always tried to start, like I said, with the spirit, start with the breath and the meditation. And I think those are really valuable. But right now, what I'm realizing is that if I start with getting my body really strong and vibrant, for me, there's a playfulness in that, which is giving me more capacity to show up for all the other areas. So anyway.
Well, I think that's really interesting to hear, right? Because we, like you said, we've really kind of gone opposite directions, right? So I speak on what resonates with me on it, because it was the physical first for me, but that brought me to that place of being able to raise my vibration. And you said something there that I missed. I think on one of the most important things: cut out the alcohol. It's bloody poison. If you want to enjoy a little bit here and there, I'm not saying that's something that you shouldn't do. If you can keep it at that, but it is bloody poison for you and it's breaking down your body. So if you can cut that out to the greatest degree that you can, that's going to be one of the best things you can do. And as well, kettlebells, when those workouts, get functional, move, right? Stretch. The yoga is the last 6 weeks I've gone through a transition that's just changed my life. I can feel my pains unraveling, all this tension, and it's a beautiful thing. I used to be focused on being just completely jacked, and now, and it was a huge challenge for the ego as I dropped from that. But now I do love how I look, and if you took 2 pictures, people go, well, really, look at you over here. But for me, it's just knowing the functionality, the health, the true health, and what it's done to my spirit. That has been a huge, huge increase and benefit that I couldn't even compare to before on what you think how I look like, right? And so that's where I speak on the mirror. Don't worry so much about shaping this up that way or this way compared to these people you see, these giant butts or whatever. It's yeah, it's nice having a little bit bigger butt. I'm sitting on a hard chair right now. It'd be nice to have a little more cushion like I used to, but don't need it that big.
So when, again, I keep circling back to this because it feels like it's such a valuable thing that you've offered to people, is this, that you are part of the change. You are part of this great awakening. And I see for so many of the people I interact with, it's so easy to get hooked into what they call doom scrolling. I don't know if you've heard that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. It's victim mindset. Right. Sitting there in a pissing match, honestly. Yeah. Doom scrolling is a good way to put it. Yeah, continue on this, most definitely.
Yeah. So I'm just curious into what do you feel like, if you haven't said it, because you've covered some really beautiful stuff here that I think is of massive value to people. And I'm just wondering, if you have any thoughts on like what people can do to help themselves to not focus too much energy on what is wrong. Like, it's good to know. We have to know. These are the things that are being brought to us. This is what they say we have to do next, et cetera, et cetera. So then, but then how to take that and go, cool, now I know, and now I'm going to take action in this direction. Are there any things that come up with you that you would advise, or that reflections?
Absolutely. Something anybody who follows me regularly, I've knows I've spoken on often. It's something I took from one of my mentors, Ed Milet, the 90-10 rule. And that being, take 10% of our time and energy, focus that on problems, which 10% would really be identifying the problem and possibly what it could grow into. And then 90% of your time and energy focused on solutions. A lot of us get that backwards. Seems to be maybe just human nature, just how society has ingrained us. We'll spend 10% of the time maybe identifying some solutions and 90% of the time on the problem, looking at the problem. And if you believe at all in manifestation, how what our inner world is our outer world, we're just bringing in more problems, telling the universe we want this problem. So just remember the 90-10 rule is a huge, huge benefit. You know, am I spending more than 10% of my time and energy looking at the problem? I already know what it is. Why do I need to keep staring at it? A lot of people would ask me, you know, in this community that we started to transition from all those things I talked about, the events, and then I built the rink, and then we did the Yarden now, and all these different things that's evolved from, and all the people I've helped, and the marches that I put on, and the speeches. So how do you have time for this, Shaun? How do you do all this when you have all these people coming at you, this and that? Well, for one, I could tell you I'm not sitting there scrolling, looking at all this stuff all day and sitting in a victim mindset. At the beginning of everything, I got added to WhatsApp or Telegram, a couple of these things. And there was only 3 chats that people added me to, which were specifically supposed to be to connect. So I didn't join all the other ones. That's all for just mass information. I never looked at any of them other than the notification that I saw a year and a half later, and there was something like 700,000 messages unread. So I tell people, well, for one, I'm not looking at that, where you guys are all spending your time. Focusing on the problems. I'm not saying there's not good information in there, not to keep yourself aware, but be very conscious on where your time and energy is going. You only have so much of it in a given day. 90-10 rule. 90-10 rule. That's a good one to remember for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one for me as well. I mean, so because you said something earlier, I don't remember what it was, but it triggered a thought that I still have the thought, which is that when this whole thing, oh yes, I remember when you said it, when it first started, this whole lockdowns and things, you were like, people won't pay attention to this. I had exactly the same. Like literally, I was here in South Africa because it comes up every year or two. It's the swine, this, the SARS, that, oh no, everyone gets scared. Some terrible thing's going to kill us all. And I've been through so many, like I never pay attention to that because I know I'm good. My immune system, I know how to take care of myself. Like I know what's real in terms of actual health and healing, etc. So I always ignore it. And then again, same thing, like, oh, this isn't going away. And so I started trying to share and, sharing facts online. Like, look, here's a statistic around this thing what about that? And geez, it just caused so much polarity, just so much arguing. And so I stopped. I was like, well, I don't want to, that's not my jam. I don't want to do that. And yet the voice, the feeling of, what I do have a truth that doesn't match what's out there, and I do feel the need to speak it, and I don't know how to do that. And I really appreciate the way that you approached it. And actually what I ended up doing was I started writing long form spoken word poems. Now, I've been a wordsmith for most of my life, and I started writing these spoken word poems. And the second or third one was We Are Already Free, which has become the title of this podcast. And it was amazing to witness the difference when I shared that poem. And I had no idea. You said you've gone viral, like with your memes and everything. I've never had a viral experience, which I love that name. But anyway, and suddenly people were sharing this poem everywhere and just saying like, this is what I wanted to say, but I didn't have the words. And it was like, I realized, wow, I can focus on my truth and doing what I believe is right without it being a polarizing event. Yes, some people are going to shout at me about it and be upset about it and have stories about it and all the things, but I'm not doing it because I'm trying to prove someone wrong. I'm only doing it because it's my truth. And so I guess the question I have really is what I love to ask every guest is, what do the words "we are already free" mean to you?
Well, you know what? As I saw the name of your podcast, I instinctively came to mind on what that means to me. And as I hear your last conversation, I look over to my left here and see the lighthouse that I put here. That's what it is, being a lighthouse, right? Just shining your light so bright where the others that are just aimlessly flying around or just drawn to it and something resonates. I love that poetry that you're putting out there. I love to check some of it out. That is something I enjoy writing, especially anytime I fall in love. I share such words. And actually singing is something I've been wanting to get into, and creating music. I think I'm going to execute on sometime soon. So as you asked, that meaning is the internal sovereignty in the mind, knowing that we are free and we were given that sovereignty, the freedom over our being, the freedom of our speech, the freedom of our thought, and that we can hold that without giving it away. And it really comes down to an option: fear or faith. Choose fear, you're giving your power of thought away. You're allowing somebody to come in there and program that and do as they wish and control you if they are able to access that. Faith, you're completely released. You're free. And it's we all are already free. It's there. So we're born with it, and we can obtain it our whole life, no matter what happens to our physical form. We're so much more than that. Spiritual beings living a human-bodied experience. If you don't believe that, I highly suggest you start diving deep down, because that is one of the easiest things to find, and it is there, and it's a beautiful thing.
Well said. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I feel like we could go in. There's so many things that I would love to discuss with you. I think for now, let's bring this to a close, and would love to have you on again to dive further into some of the kind of doors we've opened. But the final thing I'd really love to ask is how can people find more of you? You are sharing such wonderful things with the world in various ways, and I know you've got new things coming. And I just kind of, where can people now get more of you?
Absolutely, brother. So my Instagram is Shaun, ShaunJ Zimmer, Zimmer. I don't post a ton on there, but my stories I do. A lot of my stories, I've really been moved away from social media for a few years, and unless there's times I feel the need to put out certain messages, like when I was in Ottawa. I just finally started my podcast. Episode 2 was just launched on Sunday. That's been a long time coming. So that is The Viking's Voice with Shaun Zimmer. And that's one of the best places. My website, thevikingondemand.com. And as We Are Already Free came to you, my kind of new direction with everything, I Believe in Us, is what came to me. And that is the app that I'm developing, which will really encompass all the things I'm doing moving forward. So that's coming pretty soon, hoping to launch that in the next week or two, which will be on all platforms available. I Believe in Us. So The Viking's Voice, if you really want to hear and stay connected, obviously, and Instagram is a good place as well.
Fantastic. I'll be sure to share all the links that you mentioned in the show notes. And thank you again. Really just honoring that you are embodying We Are Already Free, that you are someone out there in the world who is living that truth, and just I feel deeply grateful for the amount of resonance between our stories across the world, and all the differences as well, and how that the differences illuminate the similarities and vice versa, and just grateful to have this opportunity. So thank you, Shaun. Thank you so much.
Oh, likewise, brother. Thanks for having me on, Nathan. I appreciate it. Looking forward to the next time.
Thank you again to Shaun the Viking Zimmer for coming on the We Are Already Free podcast. You can find links to Shaun's Instagram, website, podcast, and more at alreadyfree.me/008, which will give you links to listen on all the platforms, and then all the links to Shaun, etc. are in the show notes to every episode. Now, I have an exciting invitation for you. If you want to meet other like-hearted listeners of this podcast, I've created a free private community where you can comment on each episode, ask questions, which I will answer personally, and others too if they have the answers. And you can also chat with other already free people from around the world. Just go to alreadyfree.me/008 to get your free access. Dear listener, wherever you are and whatever you're going through, please know that I am grateful to be here with you, and I love being me with you. Until next week, I wish you blessings on your path.